So in this video, I'm gonna help you decide if living in the city or living in the suburbs is right for you. Welcome to Living Fort Lauderdale, where we make videos weekly about what it's like to move to or live in the Fort Lauderdale area. So if that's what you're looking for, make sure to subscribe. And I am a licensed realtor here in Florida, so just as much as I love making these videos, I love even more to help you with your real estate needs. So my number and email are popping up below. If you have any questions or you're planning a move down here, feel free to reach out at any time. I'd love to hear from you. But with that being said, let's have a little debate: cities versus suburbs, and which one is right for you. So first things first, I just want to clear some stuff up. A lot of you that reach out to me, just a lot of people in general that really don't know. If you look at this map right here, I have the border of Fort Lauderdale outlined. So that's the city of Fort Lauderdale. And the whole metro area is pretty much all of Broward County. And what a lot of people think right off the bat is that any city that's not Fort Lauderdale is a suburb. That's just not true. So the area can be broken up into three different sections, which is the beaches, the cities, and the suburbs. And the truth is you don't necessarily have to live in one to enjoy the other one. I mean, if I'm being honest, a lot of people that reach out to me, and even some clients that I've helped in the past, when they originally decide that they're moving out here, they think they want to move to Fort Lauderdale, the city. But that's because they just don't realize what else is out there. And one thing to just take into account is that even though Fort Lauderdale is a city, it is a very suburban city. So it's not gonna be like your typical urban, I guess you would call, city where like everything is stacked right on top of each other. It still does have that suburban feel outside of downtown and Flagler Village. Those are gonna be your more densely populated areas. But for the most part, Fort Lauderdale is a very suburban city. And one of the most important factors that's probably gonna determine where you wanna live is gonna be, what's your commute gonna be like? How far away do you wanna be from certain things like maybe nightlife or the beach? And then how often are you actually gonna be traveling to these things? So now, if you're working in downtown Fort Lauderdale, you can still live in Fort Lauderdale and be just as far away from downtown as if you were living in parts of the suburbs. So it can be very easily accessible. If commuting to work is not really that big of a deal for you, but maybe you're in that phase where you like going out and networking, happy hour, just going out to clubs and bars, and maybe you do that a couple nights a week. In that case, you're probably gonna wanna be in the city. But like I said, the first thing you're probably just gonna wanna ask yourself is, how often are you really gonna be spending time at these places? So one thing, a story I can kind of tell you, and this has happened with multiple clients, that a lot of people that I've helped in the past, they have a goal of living on the beach or within 5 to 10 minutes of the beach. Because, well, you know, when you move down to Florida, you think you're gonna go to the beach all the time. And a lot of people do when they first move down here. But some of these people that I've helped, they had to sacrifice some certain things, like maybe the size of their house. They had to buy something a lot smaller in order to live 10 minutes from the beach. And then after a year of living here, they realized that they only went to the beach 3 or 4 times. Because you know what? That happens when you move down here. I know a lot of people say, oh, not me, I'm gonna go to the beach every single day. I'm telling you, you're probably not, unless maybe you're retired. Reality is gonna set in, you're gonna have to go to work. It's not vacation. So just to kind of give you that little story, that does happen with a lot of people that I help. And then when they do move for the second time, they wind up going a little bit further away because they realize that they can be 30 minutes from the beach or from downtown Fort Lauderdale because they just don't commute there as much as they really thought they were gonna have to. Another thing you're gonna wanna think about is, what kind of lifestyle are you looking to live? Are you looking for something with a really strong sense of community? The thing is like out in the suburbs, they have a lot more of the HOA, even some, gated communities, some non-gated, but a lot of those communities that have a lot of amenities with the clubhouses and the pools, and it's just a lot easier to meet a lot more people when you have amenities like that. Now, if you're living in the city, that's not to say that you're not going to find a sense of community living in Fort Lauderdale. But as far as places like, outside of condos, you're not going to find too many areas that have communities with those amenities directly in the city. So you may be locked in to just getting to know your neighbors that live on either side of you and maybe across the street.
Wicca, what's up? Hey, how's it going? Are you our new neighbors? We're your new neighbors.
Or maybe just some people that you see at the gym frequently or at the coffee shops. But my point is just that if you're looking for that real tight-knit sense of community, you're definitely going to find that more in the suburbs, where you're going to find these bigger communities with amenities where you're just going to see a lot of people flocking to, and you're going to see the same people all the time. And that right there tends to make these types of communities a little bit more family-oriented too. Now, as far as schools go, I'm going to let you do your research on that, but I have read forums, I have looked at the stats on websites like greatschools.org, and typically the schools tend to be a little bit higher rated out in the suburbs. Now, that does not mean that there are bad schools only in the city. It just means that as a whole, they're higher rated in the suburbs. I mean, I can tell you right now that on greatschools.org, Pompano Beach High School is ranked a 10 out of 10. So it really just depends on where you go. Again, do your research, talk to people who have kids in the school, maybe if you're young enough, people who just graduated from the school, and get your info that way. Now, if you're somebody who's looking for a little bit more diversity, with a little bit more culture and arts and better food, then the city's probably the right place for you. It's much older. You're gonna find more of that culture, lifestyle, I guess you could say, arts lifestyle, more character out there. The food is better. I'm not gonna say that the food in the suburbs is bad. The difference is like in the city of Fort Lauderdale, you're gonna find a lot more local restaurants, mom and pop shops, local coffee shops. And while you can still find some of that stuff in the suburbs, a majority of what you're gonna find is gonna be a chain restaurant.
Okay? And it's not Applebee's, and it's not Olive Garden. Let's roll, baby. Follow me, fellas.
Here we go.
Okay. Some ass.
I like it. A man with a plan.
Here we go.
Okay, where are we going?
Chili's.
Which isn't a bad thing at all. But certain people who are looking for that, that little more tight-knit feel of a local small community, that's probably going to be something you're going to find in the city more than the suburbs. And as far as cost of living goes, it's pretty much going to be standard across the board. The main difference is really going to come from the cost of housing, and maybe some not hidden costs, but maybe some things that you just don't think about. So for example, if you're living in Fort Lauderdale, or especially if you live closer to downtown or you work downtown, parking is going to be an issue. So you're going to have to pay for parking. Now, whether you're paying a meter or you get like a monthly pass, it's going to cost you. And Fort Lauderdale is really not one of those cities where, like New York or something, where if you find a parking spot that you don't have to pay for, you consider yourself lucky, because I don't think it exists in Fort Lauderdale. I think any city parking within the downtown area, at least, you're gonna have to pay for. But on the flip side, out in the suburbs, a lot of the communities are gonna be HOA communities. So you're gonna be responsible for paying your HOA fees when you buy your house. But all in all, your dollar is gonna go much further out in the suburbs. So I'm just gonna show you a couple examples. I'm gonna show you two houses, one in Fort Lauderdale, and this house is in a really desirable neighborhood. It's in Imperial Point. It's a 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,600 square feet, which is pretty standard on a 7,500 square foot lot. And it was built in the 60s. So just take a look at the pictures, kind of get a feel for it. And this is right around the average price in Fort Lauderdale, which is the average is about $740,000. Now let's go out into the suburbs. This house is in Coral Springs. So Coral Springs is probably one of those areas that I get asked the most about. So if you take a look at this house, you're already gonna see a big difference. This one's a 5-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 1,000 more square feet. So this is about 2,600 square feet, and the lot's bigger, 10,000 square foot lot. It's also much newer, built in the 90s. Same, around that average price point of about $740,000. So you can kind of see the difference, and that's just 2 examples. Home prices are always gonna vary between different neighborhoods and different towns, and that's one of the first things that I like to go over on our first Zoom call, is really just diving into the areas before you even look at houses, to kind of get a feel for what would best suit your needs. I just wanted to show you this just to give you an example of how much further your dollar will go out in the suburbs. But to break this down, there's really only one way you're gonna find out which one's right for you, and that's, you gotta reach out to me. Call, text, email, days, nights, weekends, anytime, and I got your back when moving down here.